Welcome back, everyone. This is Derek J407. This time, here to talk to you about Survivor Series 2019, live from the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois. A show that was built around, for the first time ever, Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. The recent weeks of television has given us a whole bunch of invasions and beatdowns and takeovers and all that kind of stuff, with NXT talent invading Raw and SmackDown, and Raw and SmackDown talent invading NXT. We've gotten a lot of that, and it's made for a better build-up for Survivor Series, because without NXT it would have just been Raw versus SmackDown, which we've seen that the last couple of years. It's kind of old hat at this point, so I don't really think it would have been a whole lot better this year. But with the inclusion of NXT, it added a little more excitement to the build-up. But I think I, along with many people, I'm sure with many of you, figured it'd be a nice little way for NXT to be showcased on a big stage like this and really be put on equal footing with Raw and SmackDown. But ultimately, they'd probably get a couple wins, maybe one, maybe two, but ultimately either Raw or SmackDown would get the big wins on the night. But that's not what happened here. NXT won the entire night. By the end of this show, NXT won. What they won was nothing. Bragging rights, other than that, there was nothing at stake. But in terms of which brand won the most matches, NXT did. They won 4 to SmackDown's 2 to Raw's 1, which is very fitting considering last year at Survivor Series had Raw clean sweep SmackDown. The one victory SmackDown had all last year was on the kickoff show that they went out of their way to ignore or treat like it didn't matter or didn't count. So now we come a year later, and Raw only gets one victory all night, and it's ironically on the kickoff show. And this time they decide to count it. It was the Viking Raiders winning their match for Raw. Other than that, Raw lost every single match on the main show. So for that reason, NXT looked strong, and match quality wise, with a lot of the matches on this show, not everything was perfect, but for the most part, I think there was more good than there was bad, which for me is an easy thumbs up show. You had a really fun elimination match for the men with Team Raw, Team SmackDown, Team NXT. There was a really good triple threat match with Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, Roderick Strong. The NXT Championship got defended on this show in an excellent match, a match that belongs in the main event of a takeover between Adam Cole and Pete Dunne. You had a squash match to an extent, but it was still entertaining with Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, and of course there was a little fun exchange with Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio. It only lasted a few minutes, but I thought it was fun. The main event was not fun. It was kind of an extremely underwhelming way to end the pay-per-view, but I don't think it was enough to really bring it down a significant degree. So yeah, like I said, a solid thumbs up show for me. Before we get into the stuff, I wanted to address this. This was a story making the rounds. It hasn't really blown up too huge yet because of the pay-per-view, but I'm sure go after the pay-per-view and maybe even tomorrow, it might become bigger. And that was the situation that occurred between Mauro Ranallo and Corey Graves. And really what it was Corey Graves made some stupid tweet, like mocking Mauro Ranallo's commentary, saying like, oh, you'll gain more insight from Beth Phoenix and Nigel McGuinness, two experienced wrestlers, than you would Mauro Ranallo. That's not word for word what he said, but in a roundabout way. It was a subtle jab at Mauro. And tonight, or earlier today, something like that, Mauro disabled his Twitter account, and he was not on the show tonight. You have to think that he would have been there to some degree, especially to call the NXT Championship match, but he was not on the show all night. Michael Cole took a spot in that match. And yeah, so this is very reminiscent of what occurred a couple years ago between Mauro Ranallo and JBL. JBL tweeted out something stupid, mocking Mauro in some way. Mauro, he is bipolar. He suffers from a disease. He suffers from depression. There's a lot with him. So making comments like that, even if it's something that could be considered a joke or something, obviously he didn't take it that way. And it's widely believed that that was the reason behind Mauro not being on the show tonight. What I don't get is where Corey Graves gets off mocking someone else's commentary when he himself is a shitty commentator. I don't understand that logic, but, you know, Corey Graves was on the show tonight, Mauro was not. We'll see if this becomes a bigger story as the weeks, or as the days go on, I should say, and weeks. But, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. So, on to the kickoff show. We had 3 matches, all a part of the whole Survivor Series thing. The first one was a tag team battle royal, and it was teams from Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Some of the teams involved, the Street Profits, Gallows and Anderson, Heavy Machinery, the Forgotten Sons, the Revival, Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, Breezango or something like that. So, not everyone. I barely paid attention. I just know it came down to the Street Profits and Roode and Ziggler. Montez Ford ended up hitting a frog splash on Dolph Ziggler, but out of nowhere, from behind, was Bobby Roode dumping out Montez Ford to get the win for himself and Dolph to put SmackDown on the board with their first win of the night. We had a triple threat match for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Champion Lio Rush, representing NXT, defending against Akira Tozawa from Raw and Kalisto from SmackDown. This was a nice little match. There was one cool spot. It was a 3-way Spanish fly. All 3 men came off the top rope with the Spanish fly. Looked a little too rehearsed, but I thought it was a fine spot. But in the end, Kalisto hit a Salida del Sol on Tozawa, but as he was down, Lio Rush came off the top rope with the final hour frog splash and got the win over Kalisto. So Lio Rush retains his championship. And that put NXT on the board. So it was SmackDown won, NXT won, Raw nothing. But that changed in the next match, a triple threat tag team match that was originally on the main show but got bumped to the pre-show. The Raw tag team champions, Eric and Ivar, the Viking Raiders, taking on the SmackDown tag team champions, The New Day, Kofi Kingston and Big E, and of course the NXT tag team champions, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Kofi Kingston, just 2 months ago, was WWE champion, and here he is in some multi-man tag team match on the kickoff. The mighty have fallen. He's settled nicely back into his original role, hasn't he? This was a good match. The fans were really into the Undisputed Era guys, of course, but they were really into a lot of the spots that the Viking Raiders were doing. And they were the ones who ended up winning. They hit the Viking experience on Kyle O'Reilly, dumped him right onto Bobby Fish, and got the win. So that made it tied all across the board, 1-1-1, heading into the main show. The opening match was the triple threat women's elimination match. We had Team Raw, captained by Charlotte Flair, along with the women's tag team champions Asuka and Kairi Sane, Natalya, and Sarah Logan, for whatever reason. Team SmackDown, captained by Sasha Banks, along with Nikki Cross, Lacey Evans, Carmella, and Dana Brooke. And then Team NXT, who we found out after TakeOver last night, captained by Rhea Ripley, with Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, Candice LeRae, and Toni Storm from NXT UK, making her main roster debut. So instead of individual entrances, which would have taken an eternity, they had group entrances for this match and the men's elimination match later, which didn't really bother me. Like I said, it would have probably made this show much longer than it needed to be, so I have no problem with that. Early on, we had a face-off between Kairi Sane and Io Shirai that got a big reaction from the crowd. Carmella was in the ring, so you had 3 women in the ring at the same time. Carmella was the third, and she was kind of trying to get them to pay attention to her. They both did their moves on her. She tagged into Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke did not immediately go in after them. She kind of held back and let Kyrie and Io mix it up a little bit, which I thought was really cool. But there was some big commotion going on, moves in rapid succession being hit on each other. Somewhere in there, Candice LeRae and Io Shirai got injured, or so we were led to believe, and had to get taken to the back. They were obviously not eliminated since there was no official announcement of them being eliminated, so I knew they were going to come back out. I just didn't know in what capacity, but we found out by the end. Nikki Cross was the first one eliminated. She got eliminated by Bianca Belair. Nikki Cross lasted less time in this match than Sarah Logan, Lacey Evans, Dana Brooke, and Carmella. So let that sink in. Bianca Belair hit a 450 splash on Sarah Logan to eliminate her. Carmella got hit with a natural selection from Charlotte to get the elimination on her. Sasha Banks rolled up Kairi Sane, eliminated her. Asuka had an Asuka kick right to Dana Brooke's temple, eliminated her. There was some miscommunication between Charlotte and Asuka. I believe Charlotte even shoved Asuka to the ground and kind of put her down. So Charlotte was in the ring. She was doing her thing, I believe, on Lacey Evans or someone like that. And when Charlotte was doing her strut, she turned around to Asuka, who sprayed green mist right into Charlotte's eyes. She got hit with the woman's right from Lacey Evans and was eliminated. So down went the team captain for Raw, and apparently whatever issue was going on with Charlotte and Asuka, the Kabuki Warriors in general, is still going to continue. Natalya, she got back in the ring. She rolled up Lacey to eliminate her. Toni Storm was among the last few with Team NXT. She got locked in a double submission from a sharpshooter from Natty and a bank statement from Sasha Banks. She ended up tapping out, so she was gone. And up to this point, it was Rhea Ripley all by herself against Sasha from SmackDown and Natty from Raw. Natty, this person who was turned on by Sasha just a few months ago, was insulted by Sasha with her father. Here she is standing side by side with her, thinking that they're going to have some kind of alliance. And of course, like Sasha does, she turned on her. Ended up giving her a forearm, pinned her, and eliminated her. So it came down to Sasha Banks and Rhea Ripley. Of course, this led to Io Shirai and Candice LeRae making their way out not long after. The two mixed it up for a little bit, and eventually Io Shirai and Candice LeRae came back out. I believe Rhea was locked in the bank statement for a little bit, and they came back out to pull her away. So the referee got distracted by Candice LeRae on one side of the ring, and on the other, Io Shirai came off the top rope with a springboard drop kick to Sasha. Rhea gets up, hits her with the Riptide, and gets NXT in the winning column. Gives them a big win over the Raw and SmackDown women and puts them up 2-1. I did not expect the NXT women to get a win here, but they did. And Rhea Ripley was among these sole survivors in this match. So this, 24 hours after her team winning at War Games, they're going all in on Rhea Ripley. She's only 23, and she's incredible already. So you can only expect she's going to get better from here. This match was a little sloppy at points when you had certain people in there. But overall, it ended well with NXT getting the win. We had a backstage segment with Kevin Owens interrupted by Seth Rollins, who we heard get thunderous boos from the Chicago crowd. Chicago is not a fan of Seth Rollins, probably because he's not necessarily a fan of CM Punk, because CM Punk does nothing but tell the truth about Seth Rollins in his stupid tweets. But Rollins was questioning Kevin Owens' loyalty to Team Raw after Owens appeared on Team Ciampa the night before at TakeOver War Games. Kevin Owens said, hey, he loves NXT, but NXT doesn't need him, but Raw needs him. That was a shoot, because Raw desperately needs it. That was what he said. Raw desperately needs Kevin Owens, and they're right. Raw needs a babyface, a top babyface that the fans can actually get behind, and they ain't got that right now with, well, actually they do. They have Rey Mysterio, I guess, but other than that, they don't really got much else. So, Seth, yeah, no. And then Owens mocked Rollins, and that was basically that. Up next, we had a triple threat match. The mid-card champions, AJ Styles, United States champion from Raw, Roderick Strong, the North American champion from NXT, and of course the Intercontinental champion from SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura with Sami Zayn. Nakamura is sporting a new Intercontinental Championship belt, which I don't mind. It looks fine. I just think they broke something that wasn't fixed. I mean, that they broke something that didn't need fixing, which was the classic championship belt with the white strap. It looked perfectly fine. But this belt, I mean, it's nice. It's pretty. One of the most annoying things about this match was Michael Cole constantly calling Nakamura Shin. It happened all throughout the match. He kept calling him Shin at various points whenever he was on offense or something. It was just, shut up. Like, just stop calling him that. Who calls him that? Who has ever called him Shin other than Michael Cole? Because this isn't the first time this happened. I believe this happened at Survivor Series a couple years ago when Nakamura was on Team SmackDown. So it's very annoying. This was a really good match. It was pretty stiff, as you would expect, with Roderick Strong in there. AJ held his own. Nakamura was a lot of fun. At one point, there was this really cool spot where AJ, he did a moonsault off the top rope. He was going for his moonsault into the neckbreaker thing. He was going for it on Roderick Strong. Roddy reversed it, ended up monkey flipping AJ. AJ landed on his shoulders and got met with a running kick from Nakamura. So I thought that was really cool. Another cool spot, Roddy was up on AJ's shoulders and Nakamura came flying off the top rope to deliver another kick, this time to Roddy, knocking him off of AJ's shoulders. Nakamura hit the Kinshasa on Roderick Strong at one point. AJ broke the cover. And then down the stretch, AJ Styles hit the phenomenal forearm on Nakamura, but Roddy snuck back in, tossed AJ out of the ring, and stole the win, as you would expect someone like him to do. He's a heel. He pulls underhanded shit like that, and that's what happened here. So he steals the win and awards yet another win to NXT, putting them up with 3 wins to Raw's and SmackDown's 1. This was a great match. I don't necessarily know if it was... No, it was not the best match of the night. That match was the one up next. This match was really good, though. Started off a little slow, but it built up really nicely, and all 3 men were great. Roderick Strong is one of the best in the company. AJ is no slouch, and Nakamura, when he wants to, he shows up. So, good stuff from all 3 of these men. Up next, we transported ourselves from Survivor Series to an NXT TakeOver main event with the NXT Championship match between Adam Cole and Pete Dunne. Adam Cole should not have wrestled on this show. He should not have been on this show, and we should not see Adam Cole for like a solid month, at least, after the insane bump off the cage that he took at the hands of Tommaso Ciampa at War Games just 24 hours earlier. But here he was, with his ribs taped up, and Pete Dunne, apparently he injured his left knee in his match the previous night, but so I guess they wanted to handicap both men so neither man looked weak, especially Dunne, since he wasn't going to win. So he had an injury of his own that they wanted to play up, but still, it's like Adam Cole should not. And then he went on to wrestle this great. Now, it was a great match. It was the best match of the night, but he should not have been able to wrestle as well as he did in this match. I'm sorry. I can't get over that. But like I said, it was great. It was a great match. Early on, Adam Cole hit the last shot on Pete Dunne, only good for a 2 count. Pete Dunne hit the bitter end on Adam Cole, again, only good for a 2 count. Adam Cole ended up hitting a huge super kick at one point, got a huge pop from the crowd, only good for a very, very close near fall. Both men were fighting on the outside on the ring apron, going back and forth. Both men tried to do certain maneuvers, but their injuries prevented them from doing it. Pete Dunne was the one who suffered a little more than Cole. His knee gave out on him. Adam Cole managed to get him down, got up on the middle rope, and while outside on the apron, Adam Cole hit the Panama Sunrise, spiked Pete Dunne's head right onto the ring apron, which I thought was really cool. Both men were down. Cole got back in the ring. The referee was counting, got to 9, and Dunne just barely made it back in the ring. But once he got back in, he was on his knees, ended up getting super kicked right in the face, got his mouth guard kicked right out of his mouth by Adam Cole. Cole went for the cover, only good for a 2 count. Pete Dunne, he was crawling over trying to retrieve his mouthpiece. Adam Cole came back over, kind of stomped on his foot, was pulling Dunne up, and in doing so, Dunne managed to grab Adam Cole's fingers, did the finger snap spot, got him set up, going for the bitter end, but Adam Cole managed to slip out of it, hit him with another Panama Sunrise, and hit him with the last shot, and got the win. Adam Cole still the NXT champion. A great match. My words don't really do it justice. This was an excellent match. Like I mentioned, this could have easily been the main event of an episode of NXT or be the main event of a takeover special, and it would not have seemed out of place one bit. This was great. And hats off to Adam Cole. Dude's on the run of his life. This last month alone, he has put in quality performances. He has been on all of the shows. He had a great match with Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, had another really good match with Seth Rollins. He just competed and nearly died at TakeOver War Games the previous night, and then here he is on this show the very next night having a great match, the match of the night with Pete Dunne. And this is after a year of great TakeOver matches with Johnny Gargano. He had a really good match on one of the early USA NXT shows with Matt Riddle. Dude's been killing it. Had a great match with Dominik Dijakovic on the NXT before TakeOver War Games. So if Adam Cole is not the superstar of the year for WWE, I don't know who the hell is. Outside of WWE, I wouldn't go that far. I'd say someone like Okada or Matt Riddle would probably take that distinction. But Adam Cole has been killing it. And at least within not just NXT, but WWE, he has been one of the MVPs of the year. So hats off to him for putting in quality performances like he's done recently. So good stuff here. Up next, the Universal Championship was on the line. Daniel Bryan challenging Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. We still have the stupid red lights, even with Bray now having a blueberry belt. Now that the Universal Championship is on SmackDown, it was turned blue. So no more a cherry red championship belt. It is now a blueberry belt. Still got the red lights though, and it still looks stupid. It looks so dumb. Remember SummerSlam when the Fiend first debuted and wrestled Finn Balor? There were no red lights during that match. You could see the Fiend perfectly clear, and there was no need for the red light. It doesn't add anything. It's not scary. It's not eerie. It's not intimidating. It's stupid. Please get rid of them. As for the match itself, it was what you expected from a Fiend match. He no-sold a lot of Daniel Bryan stuff. He dominated a good portion of the match and just tossed around Bryan, but Bryan had some really good hope spots. He went for a dive to the outside. Then he got caught in position for his sister Abigail, but then he slipped out of it, shoved the Fiend face first into the steel ring post. Well, not steel, LED post. And then he got up on the apron, hit a running knee off the apron, got back in the ring, and did a huge dive over the turnbuckle onto the outside, onto the Fiend. Back in the ring, hit Bray with a whole bunch of missile drop kicks. Then he set him up for the yes kicks, which even when he pulled back and did that one kick to the head, the Fiend kept raising back up. But eventually, it was just too much for him, and he was down for at least a while. Bryan, he's been teasing the reemergence of the yes movement or whatever the hell that means. Just basically him pointing up in the air and saying yes, or not even saying it, but doing it along with the crowd doing it. So he did it here for the first time in almost a year. He did the yes points, and he hit Bray with the running knee. It was only good for a 2 count. Then Bray is back up, goes for the Sister Abigail. Bryan escapes, rolls him up, only good for a 2 count. Immediately Bryan gets back up, charges at Bray, but in midair gets caught with the mandible claw and is put down flat on his back on the mat, losing consciousness. The referee is asking him if he's okay, and then his shoulders are to the mat, so the referee counts the 1, 2, 3, and the Fiend is still the Universal Champion, as I'm sure anyone would have expected him to be coming out of this match. I don't think anyone believed he had a chance, Bryan, of winning this match or being the one to defeat Bray Wyatt. I don't know who that man is, Roman Reigns, but at least for now, Bray is looking damn strong, and this was a really good match. It was a lot better than the previous matches the Fiend was in over on Raw, because this time he was in the ring with a babyface that people actually liked. So that was nice. Up next was the men's Survivor Series elimination match. Team Raw, captained by Chicago's favorite son, Seth Rollins, along with Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton, taking on Team SmackDown, captained by Roman Reigns, along with King Corbin, Mustafa Ali, Chicago native Mustafa Ali, Chad Gable, I'm not calling him Shorty, whatever the fuck, and Braun Strowman, and Team NXT, captained by Tommaso Ciampa, along with Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, I was about to say Judas Priest. Jesus Christ. Damian Priest. Maybe they could have had, if they had Judas Priest on their team, they might have won. But yeah, no, it was Damian Priest and Walter, the NXT UK champion, who got some ring time early on. He was chopping with Drew McIntyre. He was fighting back with Braun Strowman. He was looking pretty good out there for all 5 minutes he was in this match, because he got laid out with a Claymore kick from Drew McIntyre, and Walter was gone within the first 5 minutes of the match. A man who was cheered like a megastar in front of this crowd, had chance of Walter all throughout the time he was in the ring, was gone within the first few minutes, and of course the fans were pissed and they chanted bullshit and just did not like this. Can't say I blame them. We had a couple of interesting matchups in this match. At one point we had Matt Riddle and Chad Gable going at it, doing some amateur style wrestling, which I thought was pretty cool. But eventually Kevin Owens came in. He hit the frog splash on Chad Gable and got the elimination over him. There was constant miscommunication between Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns in this match, and at one point when Roman tagged in, he and Corbin were arguing. Out of nowhere, Kevin Owens hits Roman with a super kick. Corbin's laughing at this. He turns around, almost gets hit with a stunner from Kevin Owens. He rolls to the outside. Kevin Owens chases after him, knocks him down, hits a cannonball run on Roman Reigns, goes back over to Corbin, hits him with a stunner right there on the outside, and then as Owens is getting back in the ring, he is stopped in the ropes by Tommaso Ciampa, who hits him with a draping DDT and pins him. So the man who Kevin Owens went out of his way to help fight the Undisputed Era, joined Ciampa's team the previous night, just beat him. There was no warning about it. It was just right out of nowhere. There was no story building up to it. And again, now you're down 2 of the most over guys in this entire match, and Walter and Kevin Owens, both gone within the first early parts of this match. So that was great. We had a face-off between Tommaso Ciampa and Randy Orton at one point, and that was really cool to see the two of them. The fans popped for that a little bit. Eventually, Randy Orton racked up an elimination. He hit a RKO on Tommaso Ciampa. He hit another RKO on the new legal man, Judas Priest, aka Damian Priest, eliminated him. And as he had his back turned, Matt Riddle ended up rolling up Randy Orton and got the shock elimination over him. Matt Riddle pins Randy Orton at Survivor Series. Matt Riddle pins Mr. Survivor Series. Randy Orton has the most eliminations out of any other person in Survivor Series history. This is a man who has been the sole survivor of his team several times. He tends to deliver in that capacity at Survivor Series. Here he is in the middle of this match, getting rolled up, pinned by Matt Riddle. And of course, Randy Orton did not take too kindly to this. He ended up laying out Riddle with an RKO, and Baron Corbin snuck in and pinned Matt Riddle to eliminate him. A beautiful troll job on WWE's part, having Baron Corbin pin Matt Riddle. I thought that was funny. Braun Strowman had a chance to shine in this match. He was over at a level that I have not seen Braun Strowman over at since like maybe a year ago, maybe over a year ago. He ain't been at this peak level of popularity in a long time. The fans loved seeing him. He went outside. He did the run around where he just bulldozed right over everyone. He stopped himself. He went around one more time, but this time he ran all the way around, didn't really hit anyone in his path. And when he reached a certain point, he got cut off by Keith Lee, who hit a running crossbody on Braun. Braun's the legal man, so he's being counted out. Meanwhile, Drew McIntyre comes from out of nowhere, lays out Braun with the Claymore kick, and Braun is eliminated. He is eliminated via countout. So at this point, it came down to King Corbin and Roman Reigns. Again, more dissension between the two of them. Roman was down. Corbin was on the apron. He was begging for the tag. He took matters into his own hands because Roman was taking too long to tag in. He goes over, knocks Keith Lee off the apron, takes out Ciampa, and pulls Reigns over to the corner, tags himself in. Corbin's in the match, and Roman recuperates enough to be pissed off about Corbin and sick of his shit, lays out Corbin with the Superman punch and a spear, and just lets Tommaso Ciampa pin him and eliminate Corbin. So now all that's left for SmackDown is him, and all that's left for Raw is Seth Rollins, who, well, before that, Drew McIntyre was eliminated by a spear from Roman Reigns, so he was gone. So all that was left for Raw was Rollins. All that was left for SmackDown was Roman. And for NXT, Keith Lee and Tommaso Ciampa. We had a tease of a mini Shield reunion, Roman and Seth, much to the chagrin of the fans in Chicago. Were setting up to hit a powerbomb on Tommaso Ciampa through the announce table on the outside. When they got Ciampa up, Keith Lee comes out of nowhere and just tackles them all to prevent the move from happening. Back in the ring, we have a fairy tale ending attempt on Seth Rollins from Tommaso Ciampa. Out of nowhere comes Roman Reigns, hits Ciampa with a Superman punch. Rollins lays him out with a stomp, pins Tommaso Ciampa. So now it's one man from each show. But unfortunately, the other two men, Roman and Seth, are allies in a certain degree against Keith Lee, who the fans were all behind at this point. We see it come down to Keith Lee and Seth Rollins for a little bit. Rollins is setting up for the stomp when Keith Lee catches him, hits him with his own modified version of the jackhammer, and eliminates Seth Rollins. I think this was one of the biggest pops of the night when Seth got eliminated here. So Keith Lee pins Seth Rollins, and now it's down to Roman Reigns and Keith Lee. These two had a nice exchange here, made for a very fun ending to this match. We saw a little bit of a botch. Roman hit two Superman punches on Keith Lee, went for the cover. Keith Lee kicked out, but we clearly saw the referee's hand hit the three, so it was a phantom pin. It was like, just as he hit three, Keith Lee kicked out, so the referee waved it off, said it was only good for a 2 count. Roman set up for the spear, but got caught midair with a huge spirit powerbomb from Keith Lee. Just planted his ass right in the middle of the ring, only good for a 2 count. Keith Lee immediately goes up top, goes for the moonsault. Roman slides out of the way. Keith Lee gets back up. Roman hits him with a spear and gets the 1, 2, 3 to put SmackDown back on the board. So now they had 2 wins. Meanwhile, NXT already had 3, and Raw only had 1. After the match, Roman extended his show of respect to Keith Lee, put his fist out there, nice fist bump between the two of them, a little standing ovation for Keith Lee for lasting as long as he did, and hanging with 2 of the biggest stars on the main roster. So I thought their handling of Keith Lee in this match was incredible. This is a man who has been given a huge spotlight recently due to him being a part of Team Ciampa heading into War Games. We've seen him be focused on at certain points in these big brawls on recent Raws and SmackDown with the NXT talent invading. In fact, one episode of Raw ended with Keith Lee hitting a huge dive over the top rope, and the SmackDown before this weekend ended with a face-off between Keith Lee and Braun Strowman. So they clearly see something in him, whoever it is. They see him as a very special talent, and he is, and he proved that here. His connection with the crowd here was great, and he did not look out of place at all when he was in there with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. So that's really encouraging to see. I'm a big Keith Lee fan. I bask in his glory, and it was very cool to see him get a really nice highlighted spot like this on a huge platform of Survivor Series. But it was SmackDown winning, with Roman Reigns being the sole survivor. That was pretty much my prediction heading into this show. But yeah, this turned out to be a really, really fun match with a solid ending. Up next was one of the best built-up matches on this entire show, and quite frankly, one of the best built-up matches all year. The no-holds-barred, no disqualification match for the WWE Championship between Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio. The build-up to this match has been great. Rey Mysterio's promos have been great. All great stuff. We did not know what kind of match this was going to be, and then it turned out to be exactly what you would have expected it to be. Rey had a steel pipe that he kept in preparation for Brock, but Brock, it didn't take long for him to overpower Rey and his little steel pipe. He took Rey to Suplex City, was tossing him around, beating him down, until eventually Rey's son Dominic, who Brock has massacred in recent months, he came out with a white towel, threatening to throw it in. He was on his knees staring up at Brock Lesnar, who goozled him, as Taz would say back in the day. He grabbed him by the throat, pulled him up, when out of nowhere Rey Mysterio comes from behind, gives Brock a low blow, and well deserved, since Brock at this point still does not know to wear a fucking cup. So Rey gives him a low blow. Dominic follows his dad's lead and hits Brock with a low blow. Rey gets his hands on that pipe, starts going to town on Brock with it. Dominic gets a steel chair and starts wailing away at Brock with the chair. So now father and son are beating down Brock Lesnar. Both men hit Brock with a double 619. Rey comes from one side, Dominic from the other. Both hit him with a double 619. Dominic comes off the top with a splash, an ugly looking splash, but it's still effective. Rey comes off with a splash of his own. Both men cover Brock, and he kicks out right at 2. The fans were really hot for it at this point. Dominic goes up top. Rey on one side, Rey's on the other side. While Dominic's up there, Brock gets back up, pulls Dominic down, hits him with a German suplex. Rey comes flying off his side and gets caught in midair in position for an F5. Brock hits it. Wham, bam, thank you. Brock retains the championship, as if there was really any doubt of who the winner of this match would be. But it was fun. It only lasted a few minutes. It had a really nice hope spot there with Rey and Dominic getting some measure of revenge over Brock, with both of them hitting him with a double 619. Dominic was very impressive here with the 2 moves he hit. Like I said, that splash was not the prettiest, but it was effective. But yeah, Brock winning there was no doubt that was going to happen. And yeah, for as limited as it was still a very entertaining match. And that brought us to the shocking main event, a triple threat match with the women's champions. We had the Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch facing the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayely and the NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler. In the lead up to this show, I did not view this match as being really worthy of the main event spot. I didn't really look at it like, oh, well, that could easily be the main event. Not really. But I figured, okay, on a show like this, either of these three women winning just straight up in any way would seem a little underwhelming. So you start fantasy booking in your head, like there's got to be a reason that this is ending the show. Who's going to come out? Who's going to return? And of course, the name Ronda Rousey popped into people's heads. They even started mentioning her name on commentary in reference to Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch. So that got you thinking. But yeah, no Ronda, no surprise whatsoever. It was just a regular match, and as a regular match in the main event spot of this show, it was very underwhelming. Chicago, a notorious loud wrestling city, did not really give much of a shit about this match. They were very quiet for a huge portion of this match. And by huge, I mean like 90% of this match, they were really quiet. In fact, I'll go as far as to say they really didn't react to much of anything unless it had something to do with Becky Lynch. Otherwise, there was not really much of a reaction. The match itself wasn't really all that good. There was nothing really noteworthy of it other than the fact that the crowd didn't care. They chanted CM Punk at one point, but yeah, not really the best match. So setting up the finish, Shayna dumped Becky outside onto the American announce table. It did not break. I am the table indeed. Back in the ring, Shayna and Bayely are mixing it up. Bayely has Shayna down. She goes up to the top rope, comes off for the elbow, but falls right into place for the Karafuda clutch. She's locked in it. She's scraping and scratching for dear life to get out of it, but eventually she has no choice but to tap out. So Shayna Baszler wins the main event of Survivor Series, sends NXT in a dominant 4-2-1 victory over the main roster shows. So NXT won, and Shayna Baszler was the last one standing tall for her brand. After the match, Shayna Baszler is gloating. She's holding up her championship on both announce tables. She's standing on the announce table over Becky Lynch, turns her back, and Becky kind of sweeps her leg, sends her crashing on the table, puts her on the German announce table. Becky gets on the barricade and dives off with a leg drop to put Shayna through the table and stand tall, and that was it. Really don't see why this match was the one to end the show. They could have easily ended the show with the men's elimination match. I feel like the stuff with Keith Lee would have been a much better ending to this show over this if they weren't going to do anything surprising. But I guess they wanted to have an NXT talent win in the main event, and I don't know. Hey, you could have had the NXT championship be the main event of this show. Pete Dunne and Adam Cole, I wouldn't have minded that one bit. That was the best match of the night. Only coming behind it was the men's elimination match, and then after that was the triple threat with Roddy, Nakamura, and AJ, and then Brock and Rey Mysterio, and then Bryan and the Fiend. But those 5 matches was enough to make this show a thumbs up worthy show for me. Like I said, the main event was extremely lackluster and was not deserving of the main event spot, and has nothing to do with the fact that they're women. It has everything to do with the fact that the match just was not good. But overall, I would have to give this show a thumbs up at a 7.5 out of 10, maybe 7.75. But yeah, it was a thumbs up show. I enjoyed it. Where do we go from here with NXT? Where do we go from here with Raw and SmackDown? Survivor Series is over. There was nothing on the line here. I guess what was accomplished was making NXT look on equal footing with Raw and SmackDown. Will that be enough to get them a bigger boost in the ratings? I don't know. They beat AEW for the first time in the ratings last week, so we'll see if we could get another victory for them this week. I don't know. A lot of the talent from NXT who look strong in the show, if they're just sticking within their bubble of NXT, I don't really know where they go from here. But at least on this night, NXT looks strong. I don't know what happens with Raw. They only got one victory. They basically got swept and looked weak. So, not sure what the future holds for them and all the guys on Raw. But reluctantly, of course, we'll tune in to find out, because we're just gluttons for punishment. So that's it for me. Next time WWE's on pay-per-view will be TLC next month, I believe December 15th. So I guess till then, check you guys later.